life is happening. We have to learn to let go and allow life to happen through us without any judgments, without any preconceived notions, just allowing life to be what it is.
We choose between the left and right, the ups and downs, the darkness or the light. We're finding who we are.
There's only one reform in life. When you and I stop living from our heads, you and I are here for one very solid reason, and that is to learn to be loving.
We're finding our way together, just you and me.
Namaste. One of Buddha's greatest teachings of right action as we continue our series on Aspire on the Eightfold Path. We're going to know when action is right and when it's not.
Until we finally sing. 'Cause when we seek, we find the answers. Life's a dance and we're all dancers. Aspire and just believe we can be everything. Aspire.
When you hear the name Buddha, do you picture a statue of a bald, fat man in your favorite Chinese restaurant? Maybe he is laughing, or maybe he is serene. Do you believe his life was fact or fiction? Buddha means the enlightened one. The man we call Buddha was Siddhartha Gautama, and he lived only 500 years before Jesus. Today, Buddha's teachings are the basis for one of the world's greatest religions with more than 180 million followers. Siddhartha Gautama had left his home, his title, and his family to live the life of a monk. He would now be referred to by his family name, Gautama. The first phase of Gautama's quest took 7 years. He placed himself under the guidance of 2 well-known yoga masters. Although the study of yoga and meditation were an important foundation to his own teachings later, Gautama did not approve of the trance-like meditations encouraged by his teachers. So he left again to join a monastery where 5 monks resided. There, Gautama joined in the practice of rigorous austerities. He twisted himself into painful contortions and suffered starvation. Weak and emaciated, Gautama said, "Rigorous I have been in my discipline. Rigorous I have been beyond all others. Like wasted, withered reeds became all my limbs." So, Gautama abandoned the practice of austerities. He realized that this was not the way to illumination and freedom from suffering. He felt performing austerities was, in its own way, self-indulgent. Having experienced the extremes of philosophical and yogic practices, Gautama decided that the middle way was best, a path free from extremes. Right action as Buddha taught it. Very different than the action we think of. We think in terms of our actions as being gestures that we give to people. Thank you, goodbye, I forgive you, please forgive me, those kind of gestures. Always very religious. Most of the time just polite innuendos. Buddha would say that would not be right action. Right action comes from something deep inside of us. Not emotion, not thought, something deep, the heart of us. His whole teaching was when you work from the totality of yourself outward, when you work from within out, then all of your actions are right actions. Most of our actions are impulsive. What we do a lot of in our life, if you will look at it and be honest with yourself, is that we impulsively act. We make impulsive decisions, we make impulsive actions. And then we spend a great deal of our time in our thought trying to go back and rationalize our impulses. And because we do that so much, our actions are never whole and complete. When you and I are living from the wholeness of ourselves, when we are working from the deep part of us in right action, we are doing something very unique. We are synthesizing the totality of us and expressing it out. There is nothing more powerful than right action when we work from that point of view, because then we can change the very ebb and flow of our life. I want to give you some insight into that because this is really very important. Right action does not occur out of impulse, but out of consciousness, a deep awareness of who we are, of where we are. And when we have practiced doing some meditation inside of ourselves, being aware of where we're working from within us, then whatever we do, wherever we work from inside of ourselves, it can't be impulsive anymore. The whole object is to be conscious of every single thing that we do with our life. Every single thing we do. From the moment we wake up in the morning to the moment we go to sleep. And this is the key, that everything in life is sacred. Everything that I do becomes sacred. The object, don't seek gain or loss in the actions that you do. Work from a sense of deep realization of yourself, and your actions will always be right. One of the things Buddha taught, before you do anything, before you act in any way, ask yourself a couple of questions. Is it something I should be doing that is kind, and is it useful? Those two things are good, but they have to go even deeper than that. Because a lot of us act out our kindness, act out our kind of quote-unquote pseudo love, our phony kind of love. You know how many times you've gone out and I've gone out and said such things as how are you when we didn't care. That's not right action. Or we say we love you to people because we're afraid that if we don't tell them that we love them, they won't love us back. That's not right action. Right action is something very genuine within us. It is the ability to see the futility of our actions without consciousness being behind them. And when I am practicing right action, I am very aware of everything that I'm doing because I'm doing it from one single motive. Not the motive of gain or loss, not the motive of right or wrong, but absolutely no motive. All I'm seeking to accomplish is to be genuine with myself. Practice this for a day. See if you can do this in little moments in your day, because we can only practice these things in moments in the beginning. We can't absolutely change our whole life for this yet. It takes time. But I'd like you to look inside of yourself, and before you take an action, be conscious of it. Is this something that is compassionate and loving? Is this something I deeply feel, or is this something I'm reacting to? Am I becoming angry over a situation because I'm reacting to it? Or am I becoming angry over the situation because I understand it? You know, we can be very consciously aware and very angry at the same time. And it's a good thing when that happens. We begin to see the duality of the mind. Anger is not always a bad thing. Anger sometimes is a deep inner frustration. And it's the working out of a lot of things in us. If I am centered, right action becomes very important to me. Now I'm not looking at things and doing things from the motive of I want to gain or I don't want to lose. I'm doing things in a prayerful way. And the deepest prayer of life is a conscious act. Our actions are very important. What I do right now affects my whole life. And if right action is applied directly as a conscious way, then I would never do anything that would harm another person or myself. I would never do anything that would disrupt my own inner progression of meditation, of working deeply down, down, down to the core of my being. Right action is not my psychology, it's not my analytical mind, it's not the things that I say or do. Right action is where I come from within myself. If I come from here, from logic, reasoning, and emotion, I'm going to act impulsively, and then I will find a way to back that impulse up with a kind of sick logic. But if I work from my heart, every action will be natural. I won't think them through. I will allow them to be lived through me. That's the first part of right action. Don't go away. I'll come right back with a little more. Welcome back. We're talking about, obviously, right action. I want to give you a story. It's a very touching one because the story in itself is right action, and it's an ancient old story. Before I tell it to you, just preface it with this. Right action is me not trying to control my life. And one of the major reasons why we have so much difficulty with right action is that it means don't control your life, Greg. Let your life harmonize, flow with it. Here's the story. Story about a rich king who fell in love with a woman who was very poor. As their love began to develop, he began to realize within himself that she would never really be able to love him because she would always feel in debt to him for the money that he had and becoming the queen. So he loved this woman so much that he decided that their relationship was so important, he wanted it to be on an equal basis, person to person. And he wanted her to know that she had as much to give him as he had to give her, and that there was an equanimity in their relationship. So he decided to give up his throne. He gave up all of his riches, and in doing that, he realized he was also, in a funny kind of way, possibly risking the love of this woman. But as the story goes, he did everything he could to make love possible. Everybody thought that he was a fool for doing it. But you see, the love of this woman was more important to him than his kingship and the money. I don't know many people who love so much or want this work so much, this experience of themselves in God, that they would be willing to give up everything for it. But that's right action. And may I say this without trying to make it sound like I'm an aesthetic or anything. Everything that you cherish in the form of your beliefs and your psychology, the things that you think are very important in the form of right and wrong, good and bad, and moralistic, has to be dropped for what is. If you don't want it that much, you can't have it. That's what right action is. Right action is when I am feeling very aggravated, that I take my aggravation and I move with it and I begin to see where it's coming from in me. And when I'm feeling like being very impulsive, rather than being impulsive, I follow the impulse down to find out where its core is. That's right action. It has nothing to do with the idea of suppressing my feelings, but exploring those feelings. That's right action. Right action is, as the king did, to do everything that is possible to make love happen. And this is what I'd like to ask you. Is God possible in you? For most of us, God is not possible, because we're too busy trying to control the environment of our psychology and the environment of our life and the environment of our relationship with other people. Right action is Greg not trying to control his life, Greg seeking to harmonize with his life. In my own experience, I have found this, and this is my experience, and I share it with you maybe in a way to help you, but I have found most definitely I cannot control my life. For many years, my whole ambition was to control my life. I found out very quickly that it is absolutely futile. Right action is flowing with things as they are. This requires, obviously, that I have a different kind of mind, where I'm not resisting how things are, but I'm seeking to flow with them without the idea of anger, hostility, or even asking the question, why are these things there in my life? It's really not important why things are there in my life. The experience of them is the importance of it. Following them. I've had a lot of experiences in my life, I'm sure like you, that I didn't understand. I thought, what did I do wrong to have this? And I found out that those things were blessings. They weren't bad things. I labeled them bad because they weren't in my agenda at the time. And my agenda was more important than when life was trying to show me. And when I was doing that, I was pushing experiences away from me that I needed to have for my own development and my own insight. I found this: if you push away the experiences and not let them come to you just as they come, we make life more difficult. We are resisting life. And if I'm resisting life and spending my time in the aggravation of that, then I'm missing the totality of living. Now, nothing I do could ever be right action. When Buddha talks about right action, he's talking about the supreme trust in life, just as it is. And if you can do that without worrying about control, you make it possible for God to come into you. We are the host, and the guest is the infinite, that presence of God. All we have to do is make room. Ours is to clear the house away, to get the trash out, so finally the guest can enter into us and we can allow just for a moment of great spiritual awakening. Right action. This week, practice doing everything you can to make love possible. And please remember, love is unconditional. It has no conditions in it. Do everything you can to empty yourself of those beliefs and those attitudes that have kept you from who you really are. In just a moment, I'll give you some how-tos on right action. Namaste. To help you with right action, one has to be very conscious, so I want to give you some insight in how to do this. First of all, with everything there must be dedication, so let me preface all of this. Before the Eightfold Path can mean anything to you, you're going to have to be very dedicated to your own sense of spirituality. I'm not asking you to be a Buddhist, because I'm not a Buddhist. I'm not asking you to be a Christian, because I'm not a Christian either. I don't think there is any isms. Spirituality is just a livingness. Spirituality is harmonizing with life, and you have to be very dedicated to that. Every person who is watching me right now, whether you're a Buddhist or a Christian or a Muslim, it doesn't matter. There's something inside of each and every one of us that says there's more to our living than what we are experiencing. Be dedicated to that. If nothing else, just that. All right, let me give you some insight. First thing I want to give to you on this, in right action. Before you do anything, ask yourself, is this really the way I feel? Don't be putting your morals into this, or your belief system, or your judgments. That's the key. The question really is, do I really feel this inside of me? Before you do anything, if you can just sense how you feel about it, things can change. Our feelings are very nebulous to us. We don't really understand our feelings because we were never taught to honor our feelings. Religion takes feeling away and replaces it with a fanaticism, an emotion, a passion. Passion, emotion, fanaticism, those are not the qualities of feelings. Feelings are very quiet things. They're a very quiet stream that runs in us. And if you start thinking about your feelings, you'll miss them. The only way you'll know what a feeling is to move with it without questioning what the feeling is. You just move with it. In fact, I find myself becoming absent-minded, and that's how I like to know that I'm working with my feelings. I know when I'm working with them, when I become so absent-minded in it, that I'm not very thoughtful about what I'm doing, but I'm conscious about how I'm doing it. Then I know I'm moving with my feelings. If you will spend some time with your feelings like that, in little segments in your day, you'll change your whole life. The way you perceive your life, the way you hear your life, and the way you act in your life. The next thing, very important to understand this inside of yourself. Don't believe in anything. We believe too much. Belief is just another way to make us act impulsive. So many things have been done in our life out of impulse that we don't really know when we are acting and when we are really moving in right action. We act our life out. Most of our life is an act. We act kind when we don't feel kind. We try to act thoughtful when we're not being thoughtful. We try to act loving when we are not feeling loving. It is no wonder we're phonies. It's no wonder we don't know how we feel. We've negated everything that we feel for an act. Be genuine. Spend some time being so genuine that when you are angry, you are angry. And it's okay to be angry. Be angry. And feel how it feels to be in that particular feeling or that particular mode inside of yourself. If you're happy, be happy. Be spontaneous. Move with the moment, but know the difference between spontaneity and impulse. Impulse is when you're moving and don't know what's going on. You're just moving. Being spontaneous is an awareness of the movement, a deep awareness, and it comes again from acknowledging and understanding how you're feeling about your situation or who you are or where you are in your life. Another thing in right action, it's muy importante, and that is simply this. Before you do it and before you make the act, ask yourself, is it necessary? Sometimes being angry is necessary. Jesus got angry, remember, in the temple, took the whip out and kicked everybody out. It wasn't that his action was good, because it wasn't good and it wasn't bad. He did what he did because that's the way he felt at the moment. It was necessary. It was not unnecessary. It was necessary for him. Before you do something, ask yourself, is this necessary for me? I think what Jesus did in the temple was wrong. It was unnecessary. It didn't help anyone. It just helped him maybe for the moment. We have to begin to look at that. Jesus has been painted so perfect that nobody seems to understand that he could make mistakes like the rest of us. He did what he did. Very unimportant, but the thing is, right action is involved in it. Because if we're seeing him rightly and understanding, we get to see what it is to act out of impulse rather than insight. And that's very important. You give people a break. The deepest, most beautiful thing in our life will be when our actions harmonize with our feelings. And that, my dear friend, is the spiritual path. God bless you. Welcome back to my home. I get a lot of letters from people who want to categorize me. Some people, this one writer says, you've talked about many subjects on your TV program. Are you a Christian, a Buddhist, or what? I don't think it's very important for me to be a Christian, Buddhist, or a what. What I've tried to do on Aspire is show you all the great masters. We took the book of Thomas and we worked with the beautiful teachings of Jesus in there. We've taken the Tao and the beautiful teachings of Lao Tzu as he talked about the opening up to nature. And now we're working on this beautiful series of Buddha on the Eightfold Path. I think one of the things that happens to us in the West is that we get very confined to one idea. In fact, we almost seem to get this partiality towards one religion and one attitude, and we don't broaden and expand ourselves. The teachings of Jesus and Lao Tzu and Buddha, they're little small pieces of the puzzle in a great big picture that's much bigger than the one that you and I are seeing. And I'm here for those of you who are flexible enough or want to seek a flexibility to be able to glean beauty out of all of the great masters and meaning. To me, if you can't do that, it would be like just looking at one flower your whole life and thinking that that flower was the only flower in the garden that had a fragrance and a beauty and an essence to it. It just really isn't true. So I'm hoping that you're beginning to see that all the masters, Jesus, Buddha, Lao Tzu, Krishna, all of the great ones, have something in common. The thread of love is in everything that they do. And they're teaching us to be mindful, to work with our life and make our life a sacred prayer, that everything that we do is sacred and beautiful. Buddha is one of those very beautiful things in life. I want to leave you with the beautiful teaching again of Buddha. His last and dying words to his disciples, be a light unto yourself. Everything that you've always wanted and everything that you've always aspired to in your life already lives within you. The whole object of life is just to let it express. Thanks for letting me be with you next week, Right Livelihood on the Eightfold Path. Namaste.